MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey!
What's up, everybody? Welcome. Good to have you.
Good to be had.
It is Thursday afternoon. Man. Been I don't know about you, John, but I've been grinding the tape. Just wearing the tape down to a dust.
Big tape watcher?
Big tape watcher.
I threw on some tape today, too. Background. I look over a little. I think back to some of the days when I just had to watch over and over. I realized, like, you could not, like, look at your phone, scroll Twitter, or, like, check Instagram. Instagram wasn't really big, then, but part of being a great tape watcher is just literally sitting there.
Yeah.
I heard someone say this about Kyle. It was McVay. Like, his capacity to just sit there and watch tape and take it all in was always inspiring when Sean was young. I'd say the same about, like, Andy, McDermott. I think McVay's clearly that now, too. Like, they can just sit there, guy. You can have music, but it's just you, pen, paper, probably some young coach's iPad, TV, clicker, hours on end. There's no Jim Nantz on the TV too, right? I mean, you know this, but it's quiet.
Yeah, there's I don't know if this. I've heard older coaches tell stories like
Deion's like, what are you guys talking about?
Deion's always got the music on. He's in charge of music, I think. Some of these older coaches talk about the way they used to break down tape, like
cut it and
cut it, but also how they would log it by hand, as opposed to some of the stuff technology can help you with now, filtering and all that.
Well, it wasn't that long ago when I was at Fresno State. You had to number, like when the high school games would come in, it'd be like Clovis West versus Clovis East, or Monterey Trails versus Mission Viejo, or whatever. And you would put a little thing on it in a little case, and you had this big case of like 1 to 1,500, and one time one number's off, they're all off in the book, so you could have 100 games all off by one. So Coach Hill, go to look, and then DVD started flying in a team meeting. It was pretty ugly. Now
Dana Hills,
exactly.
Yeah,
we got it pretty good. It's technology might piss us off, but it makes life a little more efficient.
I was clicking around the cable, John, as kids are known to do these days. There was a Simpsons on. There's a Simpsons where the school has no money. They're watching like old footage from the 50s in history class and that kind of thing. And some tech bro sees them lose in a math competition and gives them a bunch of money, and they digitize everything. The whole school gets digitized, but then somehow the electronics fail and they're shit out of luck. It was funny Simpsons. It's not really a recap by me. Just if you happen to see it, I recommend clicking on it.
It's a good one.
Yeah, thanks. All right, John, let's dive into it. Before we go any further, thoughts and prayers out there to Stephen A. Smith.
What happened?
Who made the mistake of criticizing the NFL's halftime entertainment for the Super Bowl. He said Rihanna can't hold Beyonce's jock, and Stephen A. has been apologizing to Rihanna for like 3 straight days. I don't know if you've caught that.
No, I've been out of the loop on that. I didn't.
Stephen A.'s been nonstop. My timeline is Stephen A. apologizing to Rihanna like 3 times a day.
So Rihanna's the halftime entertainment. I didn't honestly miss that too.
Yeah, Rihanna's the halftime. I didn't miss it because Burkhart did the promo the other day during the Fox broadcast. We are sponsored by our friends at Tito's Handmade Vodka. Tito's Handmade Vodka. This weekend, we've got this is an incredible weekend of football. We got primo football games on Saturday and Sunday, culminating with Niners-Cowboys on Sunday night. Are you kidding? Tito's Handmade Vodka. Whether you are suffering, whether you are celebrating, whether you are neutral, just indifferent, whatever you're doing, whether you're watching Netflix on a Friday night, Tito's Handmade Vodka. Bellying up to the bar, playing around a golf.
Get on it right now. Get on it right now, baby. Tito's, We love our friends at Tito's. Espresso martini to pick me up, feeling a little tired. Look at the bar and go, espresso martini with Tito's. Because you always got to tell them, because sometimes they put some of that crappy vodka in. You want the number one vodka in America.
Yeah. And when they say Tito's, I'm like, yeah.
I love doing a good, especially if they have a specific drink on their menu, but it has one of those other imposters, and you go,
right.
I want this, but with Tito's.
Yep.
And give them a wink. They didn't have to pay for this real estate.
That's right. Illegally.
We follow the rules around here.
Right.
Tito's a high-level businessman.
Tito is a high-level businessman, and he's making the best vodka that money can buy, and he does it with no frills, no bullshit, no extra this or that. It's just what you're getting is the quality. That's what you're getting is the quality. If you want to mix with some ginger beer, great. You want to mix with some water and lemon? I've done it. If you guys haven't tried it yet, I recommend it. Try it. You go out to the bar with friends, order a Tito's water and lemon, and everyone's going to be like, what? And then you're going to sip it, and you're going to enjoy it.
Someone, I think I say it espresso. It's espresso. I just, like the express lane. I just, it's just flying.
You get some espresso, and you are just
you just get espresso.
You are.
You're moving.
Going 100 miles an hour. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof. Crafted to be savored responsibly. There you go. Also brought to you by DraftKings.
Right now, our friends at DraftKings, Guy, you bet $5 on any NFL playoff game, divisional round, and choosing, you'll instantly get a $200 bonus bets deposited in your account. Am I reading the wrong one?
I usually reading it so fast I couldn't follow.
Let me stay off on this.
We're one step closer to Super Bowl 57 for the NFL divisional round. You're on the right track, right?
Keep it going. I got something off in front of me.
Check out the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code HAM. That's code HAM. New customers, $5. That's what you got to bet this weekend on the NFL divisional round, and you get $200 in free bets instantly. Code HAM, only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Very easy to do.
21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, New York, 877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Void in Ohio and Ontario. Bonus issued as free bets. 1 boost per eligible game. Opt-in required. 10-plus leg required for 100% boost. Deposit, parlay, and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms.
I'd clicked on the wrong thing. We might have been reading the wrong one all week, but whatever. We'll get into that problem later.
Yeah.
When Amazon, we can relate to Bezos when those make goods come.
19 million viewers, George. Sorry, can we get a make good?
That honestly, that pisses me off for Amazon. Like, hey, advertisers, do you want a
agree,
part of Thursday night football or not? Like, this is the fucking price. Deal with it or not. Like, you want to play with the big leagues?
You're jumping on something a little early. There could be some bumps here, but you're getting in early. This is the get in early price.
Sorry, we trimmed the fat of 80-year-old grandma couldn't figure out how to watch the game. She wasn't buying anything from your companies anyway, guys. Let's just be real. Everyone in the demo that you wanted, 35 to 55, they watched. You're fine. And those younger people, they tell their parents about it if they really want it. So
yeah, and they're coming. They're coming. Just don't worry. They're
listen
coming.
to Dion. We're coming.
They're coming. They're coming. Yeah, a lot of score predictions for the Niner game, Niner Cowboy game.
You're getting an upset. Listen. I shit on last week going into the week. I was like, this on paper, what a terrible wild card weekend. Saturday night was incredible. I would say the Bills Miami line or game, it was a 13-point line, was riveting. Giants Vikings, which I think we all thought was going to be probably the better game of the weekend, was fantastic. And that Tyler Huntley play, I mean, that's one of the better individual moments of a playoff game you're ever going to see happen. A quarterback sneak dive over, fumble to a defensive lineman he takes to the house. That's a jaw dropper.
With a guy still kind of chasing, like almost getting him at the end.
You think block in the back or a little side tap?
To me, like, I'm not throwing a flag on that. You get all bets are off. Why is it so hard for 4 guys to block one guy? It always happens. It's just one guy's kind of weaving.
Yeah. Well, because everyone's moving and you're just so I'm prepared for a fantastic weekend. Even though when you just take a step back, you would like all 4 games to be 2 to 4 points. Like the Niners line is the smallest. I mean, these are some pretty big lines. Saturday is.
I got Bills now at the smallest.
When I looked at the Bills was 5.5.
Yeah, you're right. My mistake. Bills opened at the smallest.
But Saturday, I mean,
the Niners are 4, Bills are 5.5, Eagles are 7.5, and Chiefs are 8.5.
Those are pretty big lines for Saturday.
Yeah.
Chiefs
Saturday games. Jags, Chiefs with CJ Beathard. Is CJ Beathard? What is the latest?
I don't know.
Right
Trevor
before we
Lawrence
started, what'd you see? Trevor Lawrence has a toe?
That's what I read on the internet streets. Unless I read the wrong player.
It's not keeping him out of the game. Yeah,
Trevor Lawrence toe questionable.
Whew. That's what's kick? What 1:30 Pacific?
Yeah, same deal. 1:30, 5:30.
5:15 for Giants Eagles. Don't let it sneak up on you. No. And then which is just an incredible game.
What game?
Giants Eagles.
In theory, I mean they once played when everyone was healthy and they beat the shit out of them.
Giants are a different team than they were then, John. They're playing now with confidence. Bengals Bills is a noon Pacific game. 5.5 point line. That's significant movement there. That it opened at 3.5 Buffalo. It's now 5.5. And then the Niners are 4 o'clock. 3:30, 4 points. Eagles are a different team too. I mean, that's the other thing. What are the Eagles? Last time we saw them, you and I know you texted me this morning, like, you got to watch the Christmas Day game again, or the Christmas Eve game, Christmas Day?
Christmas Eve game. It was, remember, game of the Fox's game of the week?
Yeah. America's game of the week.
America's game of the week, yeah. Niners, because we were, watching Niners skins or Commanders or team or whatever they're called.
Team, yeah. Niners team.
So, I missed that. And that's the one I kept talking about when the game started getting out of hand. I'd flip back and the women in the room were like, "Why are you changing the channel?" I'm like, "It's fucking commercial and the Eagles Cowboys going on. I will not miss important stuff. Just I know what I'm doing here with a remote in my hand."
I've been
people did not fathom. The other guy in the room's like, "Yeah, guys, just let him change the channel. He knows what I want. What's the score?" People do not flip back channels. They just watch the Niner game.
I know.
It's baffling.
I know.
Which I do too. If they're not playing Carson Wentz up 10
to me, like, if you're not doing a podcast after the game, a live stream, you can flip around a little bit,
I flip around. Well, I guess I have multiple TVs.
Right.
I think most guys that watch football, once a game gets out of hand, will go to the game that's closer. It's human nature, right? To sports fans. To the non-sports fans, like, I just want to watch Brock Purdy keep playing.
Well,
like,
exactly. The casual fans, like, we scored again. It's 32-7. Like, yeah, but it's not close. This game's over.
And the Eagles game was legitimately, it was like 24-24, 31-31.
That game was incredible.
It was.
Now, it was Minshew, which I don't know if that he threw for 355 that day.
Hit some big plays. Did you know that Devontae Smith had 95 catches this year?
Not until you told me.
He's a pretty good player.
That team's scary.
As long as the quarterback's healthy, they are a formidable foe. I think Cowboys are too.
So you think they might buzzsaw the Giants this week?
Well, I mean, their quarterback, their coach refuses to act like he's healthy. I mean, if he's not healthy, then I don't look at them the same. If he's healthy, they did buzzsaw them when they originally played when everyone was healthy. Because the Giants, one thing the Cowboys, Eagles, and Niners have are just high-end talent. Guys that on Madden would be rated in the 90s, guys that just can impact the game. Hell, T.Y. had an unreal catch in that Eagles game on Christmas Eve. He's older, but I mean, they got guys. The Giants do not. Like, Kayvon Thibodeau is probably like a Giants top 5 player. He's a rookie who had like 4 sacks this year. Again, good player. Might turn into a Pro Bowler one day. He ain't that now. He's not Michael Strahan or OC in his prime, right? And he's easily one of their better players right now. They play with wide receivers that basically are like the Bears. You know, it's like, Dante Pettis, all these random guys, N'Keal Harry, that group of guys. That's when you watch the Giants play, you're like, Hodgins? Like, who is Victor Cruz around?
Jonathan Smith.
He's the Oregon State guy?
He's a beef.
Which I like. I'm not disrespecting, but no one's really knows who that guy is.
I know.
You watch the Eagles like Devontae Smith, Heisman, A.J. Brown, sweet, Ayuk, Debo, CD, T.Y., Dalton Schultz franchise tag. That is just not the case with the Giants. I think they ran out of gas. Saquon's sweet.
Vic says, all my friends hate watching games with me because I change the channels during each commercial break. As long as you've earned the
but here's the thing: as a football watcher, you perfect that on a Saturday, right? Because you got action everywhere. So you're significant.
A lot of riffraff too on Saturdays.
True.
Saturdays to me are harder to just like. I'll always I got to keep all the scores up so I know like where am I going next? Tennessee, Arkansas, better get to that game.
100%. So you see on Twitter like got a barn burner here. Like your significant other gets used to that, but when you bring outside people in around the holidays, they're not used to that move. And I'd say this on an NFL Sunday, you're flipping between two channels, right? College is like, what's this? ESPNU? Is this SEC network? Where's this fucking Kentucky Florida overtime game? NFL is easy. You're just CBS Fox, black and white.
I'm like that with music. Do you finish songs?
No. People hate driving with me.
Oh, the same. Melissa's always like, what, will you let the song finish? Like, I heard the chorus twice.
Yeah. It's like, let's go to the next series.
Stairway to Heaven. I got it.
I don't have 9 minutes to listen to this song.
Now I'll spend 9 minutes looking for something else for the perfect song.
I'm with you.
Let's talk. There's so much to talk about. Where do you want to start, Matt? You want to start often? We got a lot of matchups to talk about here. Actually, you know what? Can we go back to last year first? Yeah. I have a little presentation I've prepared for everybody. Now, if you are listening to this on the podcast, by the way, great to have you listening to the podcast. Check out our YouTube, which is down in the description. Share the podcast. Continues to grow. Last few months have been great for the show. Thank you. YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Our podcast is down in the description of the YouTube. If you haven't checked that out, you can take us on the go, all that kind of stuff.
If you're watching on TikTok, also appreciate you guys.
Yeah. So Twitch. So if you're listening to this, I'll describe this as we go. I think you'll be able to follow this. I recommend to anybody, obviously it's Thursday today. If you're catching it live, great. Friday, you've got Saturday. I recommend rewatching Cowboys Niners from last year.
If you have NFL Plus, you do condensed version. Takes what, 40 minutes?
I didn't do condensed version because I wanted the flavor. Now I just, it's easy because there's a 10-second ahead. You just skip if you need to, but I didn't do condensed version. I wanted it all, John.
Okay.
So I went through the bad boy, and I have for many years held an opinion about Mike McCarthy, which is that he's a really good coach. He's better than most, but his teams, I believe, will consistently come up short in the biggest moments because I think he lacks detail. I actually think, and I know a lot of people probably won't love this comp because it's not really apples to apples. I think there's some Harbaugh kind of similarities simply in that I think I don't trust Harbaugh to win a championship and I don't trust McCarthy to win a championship. I think ultimately the Cowboys have to hire another coach to win a Super Bowl.
Mike did, though. Mike is a champion.
I know he did. That's true. He is. He did it.
Harbaugh's not. Mike is. Yeah.
Very true. I don't think Mike McCarthy can win a championship with the Cowboys. I think we need a different coach to do it. Doesn't mean they can't. I'm not saying he can't beat the 49ers. Players and teams make mistakes and all that kind of stuff. So the Cowboys are really good. He's a really good coach. I saw Colin Cowherd did the thing like McCarthy's better than you think. I don't know if you caught that the other day, like blind resumes. I think that paints one picture of Mike, which is that he is better than most coaches. He really is.
Had a good 2-year stretch, right? 24 wins, won a playoff game on the road. Like
he's a
like
legit coach.
Yeah.
But I think Mike McCarthy's more interested in behind the back passes than bounce passes, than chest passes. And I think his teams reflect it. I think if you watch his team's games, there's always stuff. And they played a great game against Tampa. They kicked their ass. At their best, they're good. But I think that sometimes that characteristic of his somehow shows itself in his teams. And I was texting with a buddy of mine who played for Harbaugh and McCarthy. I'm like, what do you think of this comp? And he didn't really like the comp at first. I started explaining it to him. He's like, well, the one thing about Mike, and he loves Mike. He said did
he think Mike was a more normal guy than Jim?
Yes, he says not the same human being. But he said, as an offensive guy, he doesn't touch the run game. So, if you're an offensive play caller who doesn't touch the run game, he said, in my experience, those pass game coordinator only guys just see the run game as filler until they can throw another pass. And it really, at the end of the day, can't, if you're really going to have it work efficiently, it can't work like that, which is what's great about Kyle Shanahan. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying when I say he prefers behind the back passes to chest passes. Like, I think Kyle loves a behind the back pass, but fundamentally he's a chest pass guy, which is the run game.
Would Jim quit football if you didn't allow him to touch the run game?
Jim would. That's what's funny is Jim isn't in charge of anything, but feels like he's involved in stuff in the biggest moments. That's where Jim gets involved. So I think it's a fundamental flaw of McCarthy's teams, and maybe it shows up today. It showed up last year when the Niners and Cowboys played. Now, I'm going to take you through some of this game, and some of this will come back to you, I think. A little presentation I've prepared. First play of the game, Randy Gregory lines up offsides. That happens. I'm not blaming Mike McCarthy for it necessarily. Randy was offsides like 3 times that day. Some of this stuff, I'll tell you, is not necessarily Mike, but I think a lot of it is. I do think this is a reminder. The Cowboys tried to jump the snap count a million times last year, and they did a couple times actually successfully. But Micah on the far end there, Micah Parsons is also just about offside. All right. Early in the game, the Cowboys run a hook and lateral, kind of, except it calls for Cedric Wilson to throw a sidearm pass on the run at his own 20-yard line. This is idiotic. This is absolutely idiotic. This is malpractice. Now they're down 10-0. It's the 3rd and 16, first quarter, desperate times, desperate measures. This is what I'm talking about. You know who they're throwing the ball to here? Tony Pollard, who it turns out is just their best running back. But they didn't handle the ball last year. They tried to throw him. I don't even know what you call this play.
Hook and ladder.
Kinda. But a way lower percentage. This ball went skipping out of bounds. And of course, if you watch it, it was there. Like, it was going to work.
Well, Guy, what's the most famous hook and ladder play of all time?
Kellen Moore.
Well, Boise State, right?
Not Kellen, but yeah, Jared.
Yeah, so it's like, this is where you're McCarthy. This is a Kellen Moore trick play from his Chris Peterson Boise State days, right?
Yes, it is. Kellen loves this shit. I think Kellen would be well served to coach for a defensive head coach
who calms him down a little.
Just all right. Next up, John.
Really quick, because of rights, we can't play the play on YouTube. Does he complete this?
No, it's not even close.
What, does it go over his head?
It goes skipping out of bounds. Look, he's 7 yards behind where he's trying to throw the ball.
Well, because you can only pitch it backwards. You can't pitch it forwards, right? So he's got to keep the mesh point.
Zeus on the stream says, dude would have scored if he got the ball. Yeah, there's a lot of plays that would have worked if you weren't asking Cedric Wilson to throw a sidearm pass. This isn't hockey. This isn't a fast break. This isn't basketball.
Yeah, it looks like Tony would have to cover a lot of ground there to get to the football. Okay.
All right, next up, John. 3rd and 19, second quarter, end of the half. You can see the Cowboys are across midfield. They need to get to this field goal target line, which is the 37-yard line. They're playing in their home stadium. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Cowboy Stadium, but historically it's very famous for having bad sun, which is something you would know if you play there. They run Cedric Wilson straight into the sun. And he ducks. He ducks. He ducks out of the way of the football. And the ball goes skipping into the secondary. Now, you might argue this is bad luck. You can't account for the sun. I would argue, yes, you can account for the sun at home. You should account for this. Now, if you're playing in an outdoor stadium and the whole field is in the sun, as Charles Haley once said in his Hall of Fame speech, all this shit is green. Well, then there's nothing you can do about it. But I would say, do you think I'm crazy to suggest that?
No, you at home, Kellen Moore's been there as a player and as a coach now his entire career in the NFL. So, I mean, I would guess 60 plus games Kellen Moore has worn maybe more. I mean, a lot of games, right? And they play a ton of afternoon Cowboy games in his career there, right? So I would say McCarthy. I would get Kellen. This is again, I think Kellen, the criticism a little more. He has the sheet. He's not calling the plays, right?
He's got the sheet. For some reason, Mike's got the sheet.
That does feel very Dodger Giants Sunday Night Baseball, right?
It does. It does.
Luckily, when you throw it in the sun, the defense is probably not going to pick it off because they can't see it either. Right?
Smart move by Cedric Wilson to duck. You don't want to deflect the ball and
went over his head, correct?
Yeah, just went over his head because he hit the deck.
I like Cedric Wilson. That was a good pickup by the Dolphins.
Next up, this is not necessarily a weakness here. This I just thought was fun. To your Kellen Moore point, this is a play they run 16-7. The Niners are leading third quarter. These are two offensive linemen, if you can see here, lined up in the backfield, who then run routes. Here they are on the screen. They're both clapping for the football. Just something kind of clever. I'd say maybe too clever. But, yeah, they went 7 offensive linemen. 2 of them line up in the backfield at fullback, split out. And then they both one route. 78 here at the bottom is you can hear him on the broadcast clapping for the ball.
He really was Chris Peterson's protege, huh? Do you see a lot of Chris Peterson in his shit? I mean, keep people engaged, doing some quirky stuff.
Yeah, I would say yes. The difference is Chris Peterson was never the 3 seed playing at home. He was the underdog.
You're okay. I didn't quite know where you're going. 100%. Good point. So
no,
you run that
for playing like, hey, we'll play like we're the underdog. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but Chris was always,
if you wanted to push back on this specific play call, 16-7 in the second half of an NFL playoff game, run normal shit. You got Tony Pollard, you got CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper was on the team then, correct?
Yes,
Cedric Wilson. You have
Schultz.
Let's just run some normal plays. I'm in agreement there. That you would agree, like week 5, this is not a crazy playoff game, down 9 points. There's a time and a place, and this probably isn't the time or the place.
All right, next up, John. We've got 18 seconds here left in the third quarter. The Niners are leading 23-7. It's 3rd down and 2. If you're watching this, what you're seeing Zeke lying on the ground. He just picked up a first down. So the Cowboys are moving from right to left. The 3rd down and 2 actually just became a first down. So they just picked up the first down. 18 seconds left. Tony Romo says, and one thing, Tony gets a lot of criticism. One thing I love about Tony, he knows situational football like the back of his hand, the clock specifically, right?
It's been embedded into his head as a quarterback.
You're down 23-7. You just picked up a first down. You're near midfield. Tony says, they got to try and run another play here before the end of the third quarter, right? He's saying time is not on their side. They're down multiple scores. Let's maximize the number of plays you get here. The Cowboys stand up kind of slowly. It takes them 3 or 4 seconds to realize they should hurry up. They then hurry up and they just by like a second don't get the play off in time.
Oh, so they tried to run a play.
They tried to. Initially, they didn't realize. Then they tried to. And this is really what I'm talking about here. Is I think when you go back to the hard knocks of the Cowboys, that was a lot. One thing we took out of that, remember, was Jerry Jones eating an Egg McMuffin with a fork and a knife.
He's like us.
But the thing I always hung on to was the mojo moments. McCarthy trying to create the mojo moments. And I think it's ironic because his teams, to me, are consistently not good in the mojo moments. Those are like the crunch time 2-minute drill moments. We'll get to that, obviously. But so this happens at the end of the third quarter. And Tony rightfully says they got to hurry it up. And not only do they not hurry it up, it'd be one thing if they just chose not to. They realized late, then they couldn't execute it. All right, fourth quarter. This is a disaster for the 49ers. It's 4th down and 5 for the Cowboys. At their own 48-yard line. Tony Romo actually says, excuse me, I think they should go for it. They line up to punt. Jay Feely says the 49ers are in fake punt defense. So the Niners are not caught off guard by the fake punt. Well, 10 of them aren't caught off guard. Josh Norman, remember, was on the 49ers. And as everybody else plays punt defense, fake punt defense, Josh Norman wheels and sprints to the goal line to set up the return.
Well, they're punting from the 50, right? Is that where the ball is, basically?
Yeah, the ball's at about the 48.
Okay. So that was a play, and this was, I would say peak Hightower moment. Now, should Josh Norman have been on the field? Remember, they were clearly your DBs play on punt coverage, so Charvarius would not, but for the most part, the Niners, they didn't have many options last year. That was, I remember vividly sitting there thinking that was one of the crazier things I'd ever seen after they had said, like, they had known it, but he didn't. That to me gets back to, that to me is a reflection. Like, if this is all negative on McCarthy, like, that's on Kyle, because everything that happens on his staff is on him. That moment, like Hightower, that's inexcusable. That was an embarrassing moment for the Niners, which I would say gave life for the Cowboys in this game, right?
Well, it turned into, some may remember what happened next, which was Bones, the Cowboys special teams coach. They just dialed up this sweet special teams play. But what happened next was insane. And this goes back to McCarthy. This goes back to 2 offensive linemen lined up in the back. This goes back to all this stupid shit. The Cowboys, after picking up the first down, leave their special teams unit on the field. It's first down.
I remember that.
They leave their special teams unit on the field, and Tony Romo immediately says they're trying to get the Niners to take a timeout. Shanahan and DeMeco, nobody flinches. They don't call a timeout. So the Cowboys then have to go full line change. They have to take their special teams unit off the field and get their offense onto the field as the play clock is rolling. I'm showing a picture to those of you watching. There's 16 seconds on the play clock as the special teams unit goes off and the offense comes on. Well, what does that mean? You have to give the defense time to substitute. The Cowboys don't snap the ball in time and get a delay of game penalty. This is peak idiocy. This is peak trying to throw a behind the back pass when a chest pass will do. This is so freaking stupid. Watching this thing back now,
that's the dumbest play. That's the dumbest play of the game.
If I was doing a Cowboys post game after this game, I think I would have called for Mike McCarthy to be fired. Like, this is so stupid. I can't even emphasize how stupid this is. What are we doing? You're down 23-7. You just got a first down. Credit to the Niners, because they actually needed the timeout later in the game. They ended up using the timeout late. They had too many men on the field on the Cowboys' last drive. So the Niners it was a good thing they didn't use the timeout.
Well, why would you call a timeout when they're in punt formation on 1st and 10?
It's the dumbest. The idea is that they are too dumb to not get frazzled by this, right? That's the approach you're taking here for the Cowboys. Is not we're going to outsmart them. It's we think they're too stupid to see what's happening here. And of course, the Niners.
But have you ever seen a punt team in that situation come stay on the field on 1st and 10?
Never. But it just requires the other team to panic. And what you're doing there is you are requiring the 49ers to panic. You are banking. No, you're not requiring. You are banking on them panicking.
I feel. Do you know what's dumb about that? Thinking about it right now, that move actually makes more sense when you're up a couple scores late in the game in the playoff, just hoping they will just unravel.
Yeah.
If the Cowboys had been up 23-7, it'd be like they're so frazzled, maybe they freak. Down, like you said, is malpractice. Your only goal down basically 2 scores, right? 2 touchdowns and 2 points is to score. To what anything that slows you down to get your offense back to continue to roll is malpractice. That could be the low point of all their offsides and even the Dak slide at the end of the game. This moment's an all-timer. You could argue it's closer to the Chuck Pagano, Pat McAfee punt snap than I think ever gets discussed.
I'd forgotten how stupid this is, but this is Hall of Fame stupid.
You don't do that as a team trailing by 2 scores in the 4th quarter.
When time is of the essence.
Yeah.
You just got a big play. And again, who are you coaching against? I think Kyle Shanahan's pretty, I think he's pretty even keel, pretty smart.
Well, part of this exercise, their coaching staff's the same, right? Bones is their special teams coach. Kellen's their offensive coordinator. Mike, Dan Quinn, their core group of coaching. Our guy Nussmeier still on the staff. it's their cohesion in the last 2 years is the same with the Dallas Cowboys.
They end up kicking a field goal on this drive. Okay. Stupid. By the way, it's not just the substitution part of it. Like, you have to understand, I did a football game. I did an Air Force game this year, and I asked Troy Calhoun, as Air Force's coach, I was just like, how much time do you need on the clock to substitute? Because they would run guys on, run guys off. Because my question was, if an offensive team substitutes pretty late, you as a defensive team can take advantage of that by taking your time substituting, knowing the referee is going to hold them up. And he said, yeah, actually, I think if you're subbing under 18 seconds, you're putting yourself at risk as an offense, knowing that the defense is going to sub and knowing that the official is going to hold things up for them.
So
he knew immediately as a coach. He knew immediately. I think 18 seconds, you are playing with fire if you substitute under 18 seconds. That was his answer. There's 16 here. There's 22 people on the field for the Cowboys.
It's a tough look.
And look at this. There's a guy on the near side, John. He's on the near side numbers. So he's not going to get off the field until, 13 seconds?
Well, here's the thing. Part of, I bet if we talk to most offensive coaches, part of substituting is not as much as, especially at the highest level of Power 5 football or the NFL. They're always going to have time to make their moves. Like if you're trying to get Greenlaw off the field to get Alshire in or whatever, it's about ultimately the matchup. My player versus your guy. You're going to get him on the field. I just think that my third wide receiver is better than your nickel corner. Or if I say in a, two back offense and you're, three linebackers on the field, whatever. It's not about like running it on and off the field. It's about once the ball is snapped, we have a set advantage at X, right? It's not to get you moving at rapid speed going on and off the field because you just put out the rules of equality. You don't get to do it that way. Basketball is the same way, right? When you sub off and sub on, like they get the opportunity to do the same thing. This isn't like you can't just like hit some curveball when you don't know it's coming. It's like, damn, they got 7 wide receivers on the field. We got 8 defensive linemen. That's not the way it works. It really is an all-timer, which I think is completely lost. Partly because of the way the game ends.
And then there's this, which is, 14 seconds. Romo, again, I think it was great having Romo on this game, says this game will end if they run a play to the middle of the field. Then they do it, and Nant says, oh, this could do it. And Romo's like, no, they can pull it off. But Dak goes too far. Dak slides down 14. I guess I'll set up the situation for those listening. Many of you will remember, but 6-point game. Cowboys hit some big plays. 14 seconds left. They've got the ball. The Niners set up the defense that basically protects both sidelines. Dak takes off running. Dak slides down at the 27-yard line. Okay. This is an image of him sliding at the 27. The Cowboys then try to spot the ball themselves at the 23. So, as we know, the Cowboys don't get the snap off in time. They try to spike the ball. They don't. The game ends. The official has to get in there to touch the football and spot it. And you might, under some circumstances, I'd be like, well, it's stupid that the official has to touch the ball. Why are we wasting? But when you think about it, you cannot allow a team to spot the ball for themselves. And this is the perfect example of why. The Cowboys give themselves 4 yards on this play. So even if they get this snap off in time, I think they would have had a mess in a review because the official ends up moving the ball back from like the 23 to like the 23 and a half, 24. The Cowboys would have then spiked the ball. The Niners didn't have a timeout, but there would have, how do you review that ball would have been misspotted by 2.5 yards, even if they get the snap off in time. And that would have been a mess for the NFL.
What if it would have snapped it and they would have let it go and he would have thrown a touchdown? It would have been one of the most controversial finishes in the history of the league.
Spot right after you've let the next play happen.
It'd been bad.
Definitely the college rule book has this is there are extenuating circumstances can allow for correction.
Force majeure.
Force majeure. That's right. So Late game situations is what everybody works on in every practice. You've been at practices, college and NFL. You've worked for teams. You've been at practices, scouting players. Everybody works at this.
Cowboys too.
Mojo moment. And in their mojo moments, I think they're more likely to screw it up than get it right. And I think that's part of a Mike McCarthy team. Doesn't mean you're guaranteed to beat them. Doesn't mean you don't. Niners made plenty of their own mistakes in this game. They had a false start on a illegal motion with Trent going in motion when they could have snuck for a first down and won the game. I'm just saying, I think this is a McCarthy trait.
One thing, and listen, I don't know, just from the outside, I've always heard he's a high-level guy. That was easily the biggest win of his career. Could some of this, and this is where I defended Mike McDaniel last year with some of last week with the delay of games with Skylar Thompson. Your quarterback is a conduit of your operation when it comes to time, right? For the example you gave at the end of the third quarter, I need a coach on the field rallying my guys. Like, I understand the guard's huffing and puffing, right? He might not be super locked into situational football. CD, Amari might head in the clouds, but the one guy who should be dialed is the quarterback. And then that moment at the end of the game, I do wonder when it's rolling for Dakota, fucking sweet. He was awesome last week. He can have moments. His high-end game, top 6-7 player in quarterback in the league, right? That type level of play last week. But over the course of the season, he's never proven that. It's why most people have him fringe 10, right, in that range, right? Not anywhere near the elite guys. Like all the 3 AFC guys playing this weekend. If you talk to anyone that follows football and you compare Dak to Burrow, Allen, or Mahomes, they'd laugh in your face. But I do wonder, and maybe we get a chance to see it again, this tight game with all the marbles on the line. Does he, I don't want to say short circuit, but like that play, hard spot, right? They don't have any timeouts, but you run in the middle of the field with that, you're kind of fucked. I don't know what else he should have done. This notion, like I'm arguing with people last week, Cousins just doing what he's told to do, going through the reads, dump it off. You got to have a play call. To me, it's on both people. You can't have a play call on 4th and 8. I don't care if the flat opens up the middle of the field. You cannot call routes 7 yards short of the sticks that your quarterback might throw it to on 4th and 8 in the playoffs. You do that, you're going to lose. And Cousins, who's a robot, he can't throw it there either, but that's on the coach, that's on the quarterback. I think, as Jack Del Rio said one time when he looked at Derek, we get all the praise, we get all the blame. They are kind of interconnected. And this is where Mike, it's in a weird spot, right? Because he's not calling the plays, but Kellen, Mike, and Dak are all kind of interwoven. And we know when it's Jimmy and Kyle, it's just those two. It's on them, or now it's Brock and Kyle. And that's where Mike, and I think any head coach who's an offensive head coach or a defensive head coach, but he's not calling the plays, it's in legalities, I get to, it wasn't my deal. It wasn't, I wasn't in charge of this. It's not under my peer view. You can't sue me. And that's what it always feels like when a head coach does that move. Now, in fairness to Mike, I bet he thought when he was going to come back, I'm going to be the play caller. And Jerry's like, you want to be the coach of the Cowboys? The little dude from Boise, he's calling my plays.
Yeah.
But it does reflect the whole operation. And no different than, it does feel like the 49ers have got better at situational football. Has the coaching staff gotten any better since Brock, or is just Brock's better at it than you are? Very dependent on your quarterback is ultimately what I'm saying. On him, just this is the highest level, a lot of pressure. It's why we give the top guys so much praise, because it is intense. It is hard. It's why Cousins, kind of folds. And Dak, it's hard. Do you judge too much last week? It was all rolling. What does it look like if that game was super tight? I trust Tom more. Why? Because we've seen it over and over.
Yeah.
This week, it's not like I trust Brock anymore, but Dak hasn't proven that he's any different, because last week or last year, some pretty stupid mistakes and some pretty big moments, things that he could have controlled. So I heard one thing I think the Niners defense is kind of getting knocked on lately, and fairly so, as they have some openings in the pass defense. You can go get behind them. And I think it's true. Obviously, if you get a elite guy on Lenore, that's an advantage for you. And Tarvarius, really good player, but no one, he's not Revis, right? He just gave up a play to DK Metcalf. But that's fucking DK Metcalf, who, beside Revis, Dion, and maybe Richard in his prime, on a go route, could he smoke any DBs ever of the last 20 years? Probably. So I don't even think like that's that crazy of a play. So it's like, oh, the Cowboys can get after him. Well, yeah, with who? CD, that's not really his game. He's more of like a Keenan Allen-y on steroids type, physical, can make, but he's not a go route guy. Cedric Wilson's gone. Amari, who's more of a route runner, but he could use his speed, is not on the team anymore. Schultz actually can stretch the field, but he's a tight end. The Cowboys, the Niners are susceptible. If you have Tyreek, DK, I think A.J. Brown, while he's not a speed demon, can run that play. Likes, throw it to me down the sideline, like a slower version of DK. I'll just fucking body you up. The Cowboys are not really built like that, I would say, to throw go routes.
Yeah.
Because that is a weakness of this Niners defense of just hitting, because they're safeties.
But I also think they're susceptible on, the classic. We've seen it a lot with them, 3rd and 14, and that seam ball gets them. I mean, we've seen that plenty. Or
I would say they're more susceptible this week of Schultz than I am like CeeDee Lamb going 12 or going like a Devontae Adams on them.
I think Schultz is terrifying for the 49ers. My conclusion is not, somebody asked like, well, what's your conclusion? My conclusion is not, oh, the Cowboys suck or the Cowboys can't win. My conclusion is just, if Mike McCarthy plays enough of these big games, I think his team's shortcomings will come out. But this is just a one-off. So, the Kellen Moore, DeMeco Ryans matchup you're talking about. The other thing, Tony Pollard's, they didn't play Tony Pollard last year. Tony Pollard's there now.
I think a lot of Cowboy fans were mad. A lot of Cowboy fans are like, why aren't we giving this guy the ball more last year? It's like Zeke's not fast anymore. And this year they don't. They just Zeke's there, 12 touchdowns, red zone guy. Tony, they feed that fucking guy the ball. He can play.
So you saying you think it's the matchup DeMeco versus Kellen is interesting because it's DeMeco's, he's interviewing for jobs. Kellen kind of was getting the DeMeco treatment a few years ago where it was just a matter of time before he was a head coach. And it still may be. But both these guys have something to prove again, can prove something. It's a win in this little chess match between the OC and the DC here. And you're right. Kellen doesn't have, Devontae Smith, but he's got a lot of little pieces to work with.
Well, I mean, they signed T.Y. He's made a couple plays. CD's really good. I mean, I don't ever view him becoming that AJ DK tier. I think a lot of people think he's like one of those 1Bs or would be like an elite 2. And, who have smoked the Niners? The elite guys, right? Devontae's kicked their ass for a couple of years now and their defense has been good. A.J. Brown last year destroyed them. Now their DBs, obviously, it was different. DK just kicked their ass. I don't view one guy just being able to take over. I don't think CD is – I would be – stunned if it's like a 10 for 140 day from CeeDee Lamb. Now, which
is basically what he did to the Eagles.
He can get 6 or 7, and if Dalton Schultz gets 6 or 7 and a touchdown like that's where it starts getting a little nerve-wracking.
Mikey B says CD is more like Ayuk level.
Yeah, I actually think Ayuk, if we get there next week, I think Ayuk and Devontae Smith, who Devontae clearly in high school much more heralded, or I mean not high school too, but in college, Heisman Trophy winner, just I think he's more that. CD's more, to me, more of a physical. I don't even know. I'd have to think about his comp. What people were hoping like N'Keal Harry would be.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because N'Keal never looked for a second like that guy once he got to the pros, right? Kind of a move him around. In college, they moved him all over the place.
Yeah, just a really good player. I mean, he's really good.
The Niners probably would do more of that stuff with Brandon if they had to, but they don't. Like jet sweeps and end arounds and that kind of stuff with him.
But their other receiver does that.
Yeah, right? They got 2 running backs that do it, and Ayuk has turned into Ayuk. When you go back and watch last year, got open a lot in the game. We can flip the offense in a second, but Ayuk got open a lot in the game last year.
No one's confusing old James Garoppolo for Peyton Manning.
DeMeco, you just said like.
Is interviewing currently right now with somebody?
He's actually on this show. But the Niners have Emmanuel Mosley played well last year. Other than him right now, they got everything they want. Bosa got hurt last year in the game.
Well, Amari had a nice touchdown in the game, right? In the Cowboy Niner game, in the playoff game, like in the kind of a little flag route toward the pylon.
It was pitch and catch.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. Now their DBs.
Ambry Thomas played a lot that day too.
Yeah, with Josh, correct?
Josh Norman, yeah, he was there. He was there. But anyway, I just think like the thing for DeMeco this week is what we kind of talked about in the McCarthy conversation is just, DeMeco's doing a press conference right now. We found him.
Got a busy day today, guys. Just getting out the practice field, talking to you guys. Then headed to. I got to check my schedule. Some team wants to interview me, and then I got another one tomorrow.
Yeah.
So let's speed this up, guys.
DeMeco, we got an interview at 2. Oh, you mean a media interview? But one thing DeMeco gets this week is a guy who will have some. You know what we were saying? I made the comment to you the other day. Like we only talk about designer blitzes. We don't talk about designer offensive plays. I think maybe that's what Kellen Moore has cooked up. I guess designer probably means they're more specific for their opponent. It feels like Kellen's just got like a book of a bunch of trick plays he's waiting to pull out. And I think Mike's probably got him too. And I think they probably make McCarthy really happy. So
wouldn't you like trick plays if you were a coach?
Of course. DeMeco brought the heat didn't blitz a lot last year, but he blitzed in a big spot and Dak almost hit Cedric Wilson for a big play. On a
you read the Ringer DeMeco profile?
No,
saw it on my timeline.
Ringer,
yeah, it got retweeted into my time. I did a little.
I got to read it.
Little I didn't go to the website again. Just clicked on it. Was in front of my eyes. Again, I mean, it's just I wouldn't say a puff. High level guy. People are gonna blow him. Yeah,
smart guy.
Some impressive stuff of like his football knowledge, and it goes back to like when he was a rookie, he was the defensive rookie of the year. His when he was drafted in the second round by the Texans, the defensive coordinator, I forget who it was, or one of the defensive coaches was saying, and you coach for long enough, you get really smart players who come off the field and they say, your team captain, usually safety or linebacker, says like, we got to start doing this, this, and this. They're doing this. What we liked on Thursday, Friday, not going to work. And you just work with your kind of captains, like your high-level intellect guys, which football 101. He's like, never in all my years have I had a rookie come off. And we'd look at each other like, didn't think of that. Yeah, let's implement in the middle of games. So Kellen Moore was once jolted up like he's going to be a head coach. It's in a short period of time, DeMeco went from quality control to lapping guys like him as he said, I guess, in his press conference right now, I'm interviewing with the Broncos later today in person. Of just where it feels a little unlikely that he's not going to get a job, though, when you start really looking at it, he's not guaranteed a job, right?
No. I mean, if you were Arizona, I think it would make a lot of sense to hire him if you're Arizona because you play McVay and you play Shanahan 4 times a year and Shane Waldron. To me, I hadn't really thought about it a ton, but I think I'd probably hire him if I were Arizona.
Would he take the job?
I mean, is it gonna? You don't have to pay him Sean Payton $20 million a year, but
he turned down jobs last year. Remember?
Yeah, he might turn it down, but to me that would be different than turning down the Texans. I know Kyler feels like an albatross, but he's played Kyler. He played in the NFL. Like DeMeco just played in the NFL. He knows how to handle a locker room. He
came out and said that the Texans thing, he's interviewing with them. Like,
well, I know, but
yeah,
I just mean like,
I'm with you. If you're Arizona, how's he not in your? He should be a finalist. It's like, yeah, you're already in our finalists.
Who would you have above him right now?
Brian Flores, maybe, who's been a head coach, also defensive mind, and a dick. Like, I think you just kind of need someone in Kyler's ass. Because you're in the boat with Kyler for years, so it's
right.
Someone
that maybe break Kyler and make him quit. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's not a terrible idea. Maybe DeMeco's just too nice to him.
What do you think of this? I mean, it's the more I think about it, it's just a cool young coordinator matchup, like 2 guys that get a lot of attention. Obviously, DeMeco was kind of on his own, but
it's a good one. I think it's a big day for Kellen too, because last year, I think they might have been the best offense in the league. They were one of them.
They were the best offense in the league last year.
And to be down 23-7 going into the fourth quarter, like DeMeco kind of took his fucking lunch. And the Niners defense, while it was really good, was not viewed like it is right now. So a team that I would say defense was a huge part of their operation getting in the playoffs, the defense and Debo. But DeMeco took the guy's lunch. And you could argue that moment has kind of derailed the Kellen Moore hype train. And DeMeco's jolted. And I would say this year he was spoken about like top defensive candidate, right? And just one of the bright young coaches in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I think DeMeco Ryans is held even higher standard, just like the way people talk about him, than like 15 head coaches as well. Like people just super high character, super high level football level, elite coach, just the total package. Like inevitable. This guy's, whenever he chooses to do it, like he's coming. He's going to be, as long as he wants to do it.
Isn't it funny that like publicly with DeMeco, it's so obvious now, but it was just a couple of years ago. He was just the Niners inside linebacker coach for 2 years. He was their quality control coach for a year. He was just 3 years kind of anonymously on their coaching staff.
Well, that's what the Ringer, the article was basically like. DeMeco's entire career has been about other people's predictions. Like early on, it was like, this guy's the smartest football player I've ever seen as a rookie. And he went on to be that, right, as his career. Kyle Shanahan, when he was a quality control coach, it's only a matter of time before DeMeco is a position coach. When he's a position coach, it's only, and these are quotes, real quotes from Kyle. It's only a matter of time till he's a defensive coordinator. He's a defensive coordinator. It's inevitable DeMeco Ryans is going to be a head coach. Like his whole career has been people predicting the next step for DeMeco, and they've never been proven wrong.
Good guy to bet on.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And
it is.
So, yeah.
I tell you this, if he holds the Cowboys to 17 points again, it doesn't. Everyone's already all in on DeMeco. There's no extra DeMeco hype, but that'd be pretty good.
For sure.
That'd be pretty good. Flip it. Brock Purdy. Dan Quinn. Brock Purdy is coming off. This is per the 49ers, the most passing yards by a rookie quarterback in a playoff game in NFL history. Here's the list. Russell Wilson, 375 yards against Atlanta in 2013. Sammy Baugh, 335 yards at Chicago in 1937. And then Brock Purdy, 332 yards against the Seahawks last week. So that's the guy going up against Dan Quinn. The flip side, I'll give you one Cowboy defensive stat. The Cowboys are number 2 in the NFL in sack rate. 8% of their pass rushes or dropbacks result in sacks. Only Philly actually is better. Philly's number 1 in the league in sack rate. So you beat the Cowboys, you be a good test because you're going to get good preparation because Philadelphia gets a sack on 11% of dropbacks. So that's the matchup. A guy who threw for over 300 yards last week doesn't necessarily want to do it that way against what's turned out to be one of the most productive pass rushes in the NFL this year. Second most.
I had someone ask me, do you think that it's a negative, like it would tire them that they had 66 pass rushes last week, excuse me?
Yeah, interesting.
I was thinking, well, I think half of them, once you up big and you just, I actually think it's kind of fun and easy for defensive linemen. Like, I actually think running the ball, and I think Kyle and Harbaugh would agree. I not only take your will, I wear you out. I don't wear Hassan Reddick or Micah Parsons or Nick Bosa. It's like, if you just told them for an entire half, every single play is a 5 or 7 step drop, I don't think they would get tired. I mean, obviously you would not be the same, but I'm just saying they would sign up for that, or you're playing the mid-Cowboys offensive line, Emmitt Smith, they're going to run it every single play. It's much more difficult that way. Don't you? Do you agree?
Well, yeah, I do agree, because I think if we went and watched if you're up,
and they were up 3 scores.
You're up 3 scores. And I don't think there's any shame in this. Game's hard. You're not pass rushing 100% every time.
Especially not the D tackles.
Max effort every time.
Yeah.
And you let's just rotate guys in and pass rush. So I agree with you. I think that had that game been, 17-14 and, the Bucs don't run the football. So in that way, it's not.
Well, and think about that. Obviously, the 49ers are a very, very good, scheme-wise, I think many people in the league would say they're the best at it. And when it's rolling, they're impossible to beat. When they rush the ball effectively, they're going to beat you under Kyle Shanahan, since they've been good in 19. I was doing some market research, listening to some Cowboy content, looking around. The Cowboys' inactives on Monday night, multiple big body defensive tackles. Well, they didn't need them. Why? Because Tampa, obviously they ended up throwing 66 times, but they're going to throw. They are not a running team because they can't run it. So they have some bodies that, depending on who they're playing, they can activate more pass rushing defensive linemen or multiple D tackles that Matt Mosley, who I listened to, who covered the Cowboys for fucking decades, says, I'll be stunned if Quentin Bohanna and Neville Gallimore are not up this week. But they didn't need him against Tampa.
Good fucking recon, MIDDLEKAUFF.
Which makes sense. Now, I'm not
Like
saying
baseball, it's like a baseball team. Like your
100%.
left-handed lineup, your right-handed lineup.
It's not Sean Gilbert or, some all-time great defensive run stuffer, but still, like, that just, you're right. It's very baseball, like a playoff series. Who's up, who's down. It makes sense. I would guess at minimum one of those.
No lefties in the bullpen this week.
If not two of them are up. So they'll play, because you have to play the 49ers more to run. The 49ers are going to establish a run. How did that game start last year? Started running the ball down the Cowboys' throat. Because what were they establishing? We're fucking tougher than you. And we're going to break you. Because we don't think you're that mentally tough. But physically, you do have some tough players. But we're going to prove that we're tougher than you. And they did. And I would imagine, Kyle, I will be stunned. It was honestly a little stunning on Saturday afternoon when Kyle just came out like throwing it like he had Patrick Mahomes, which I don't blame him, but it was raining and Purdy's balls going all. I'm not saying, and I'm pro throwing the ball in general. I would be prepared for some runs and starting, because this is the way to ease Brock into the game, because they didn't ease Brock into that playoff game.
No.
I bet that they run some power stuff right at number 11, and wherever number 11 is, I would be stunned if Kyle doesn't have some. He's going to be on the right side. Yeah. I don't think he's going to waste many snaps on the left side. So he'll be on the right side. We're running the ball at him early enough. If you told me they went 3 and out on the first series and went 3 straight runs to the right, that's very believable. Because the one advantage McGlinchey is going to have against Micah Parsons is he can't run block. McGlinchey is a big guy. He's a good run blocker. Put Kittle over there. You're hearing it here first. No inside information. First play of the game, run to the right at Micah Parsons. And honestly, wouldn't be shocked if the first several plays are runs, because that is a fuck you. We're running down your throat, Mike and Dan.
Yeah,
because watching the Eagles Cowboy game on that Christmas Eve, I think the Cowboys would rather kind of have some herky jerky, spread it around, like play like that, like the Bucks. It's going to be pass fest, both sides, and that's what the Cowboys want to do. Run some of their trick plays. They don't want to get into this like body blow after body blow after body blow. What Jim Harbaugh has done to Ohio State the last couple of years. And Kyle has gotten away from that a little bit. Don't blame him. It's been working. I think it's going to get back. You saw the thing that went viral of McCaffrey getting some D and Juszczyk working on a swing. Those two were just, obviously they spend time together because they're in the same meeting room, but it's like, I bet it's a game like McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell down your fucking throat, Mike.
Yeah.
And Dan, I mean, can you stop us? And I keep an eye on the inactive list that Neville and Quentin are up.
Okay.
Or whoever the better group is, because that's going to be, kind of a fascinating. You only have so many pitches because we talked about their run defense has kind of been hit or miss throughout the year. You got to add some bigger guys, right? Because you're not. Kyle would swan dive off the Golden Gate before he ever had a playoff game where he threw it 66 times. That is a Shanahan family nightmare, right? Seriously. I mean, football's a guy's life, and his nightmare is literally throwing it 60 plus times a game. And you'd argue how many games in the history of sports, of the sport of football, like Mike Leach, 66 times in a big game, college or pro, is going to be successful, right? Besides some crazy college shootout. Even you could throw college out, but definitely pro football.
We were talking about the other day. I think by and large, your 350-yard passing games, I'm not going to say I bet you lose more of those games than you think you do. Like if we went and researched 350-yard passing games,
probably a little skewed these last several years. I think it's gotten a little, I would say in the history of the league, though.
In the history of the league, but I would bet even, I don't know. It's just a thought. But
two things to me, and listen, it's old school thinking. Some would say, running the ball, obviously the analytical community wants you to throw it all the time. I do think the two things that always translate, and any good old school football guy would tell you who has been in the trenches for big games. Running the ball and good defense always works in big games. Always. Because what does running the ball do? It slows down the game. And listen, let's just say Dak continues his great game. So he's just playing at a super high level. You're getting Dak back-to-back games of the best of he's ever had. Well, what does running the ball do? Keep him off the field, right? They did that last year against the Packers. You just slow down the game. And then you rely, when they get limited amount of possessions, on the area that's carried you a large percentage until Brock Purdy showed up, the defense.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, when you run the ball for 4 quarters, you are banking on in the fourth quarter it's going to be easier for you to run the ball than it was in the first quarter.
And hasn't Kyle been outspoken, like, we call plays for the big picture?
Yeah, so you are, at the end of the game if you've got the lead. This is where Kyle, right, the stat of him having the lead or not having the lead going to the fourth quarter.
Do you expect them to come out throwing like they did last game? That wasn't weird because it clearly is an advantage, but
it was weird. It was weird because it was pouring rain, and Brock airmailed the first one. Now Kyle maybe would argue was like, I just want to get a few out of him, and then we can settle into the game. I don't want to wait till the third series and he's got one pass attempt or something like that. I could see that.
Do you have to settle now game 2 of the playoffs, or is it like he settled? He play a playoff game?
Boy, I don't know, man. I still think you might need to settle a little bit. Dallas Cowboys at home. This is a different animal.
I agree. I'd say you settle on the road.
Flat to start the game last week.
The what?
I thought the Niners did, just as a team, did not quite look like themselves in the first half. I mean, obviously they were trailing, but I thought they just didn't quite have the juice they might have had if they were the 6 seed playing a 3 seed last week.
We're up 10-0.
Part of it. I know. I just thought they did not get after the quarterback really in the first half like they did in the second half. Part of it, they've just been on. I think when you win a bunch of games like this and you don't have to win the ones you're winning at the end, I think it's not the same as the way they got into the postseason last year. That's all I'm saying.
Fair. They came out with their hair on fire differently last year against the Cowboys than they did in start to finish in the half against the Seattle Seahawks for sure.
Here's the other thing with Brock.
Heavy favorites in that game too, so a little weird.
The other thing I think in terms of just settling in, Dallas is just better. Dallas's defense is more disruptive. Dallas's defense is faster. Dallas's defense has the best player in the league that he could possibly face because Nick Bosa's on his team. So I think from that standpoint, it's just you got to settle into this. Maybe it's not settle into the playoffs, but it is settle into this game against this team that's going to try and get after his ass and going to try and make him look the way he looked at the end of the Seattle half.
Well, one thing that he didn't have to deal with last week that everyone has to deal with when they're playing Nick, right? And everyone had to deal with J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack forever is where Purdy's eyes, the first thing he does is where's number 11? And like you said, it's going to be pretty easy. You just look, where's McGlinchey? Number 11. You don't have to look to inside. Any snap that Dan Quinn put 11 over 71, even trying to, and I bet there's a rep or two because they're big on keeping you honest, right? But it's probably a waste. Is this a keep you honest game or is this what are we doing, right?
What are we doing? You don't have snaps to waste.
Because there were some times in the Eagle game watching that Christmas Eve where Malata, their Eagles left tackle, the rugby player, is now really good. He'll obviously he can rush for both sides, but so you just keep an eye on your right side, which I've said I do think it benefits that you are looking that way naturally, right? It's easy to kind of just move your eyes to see if McGlinchey's missed them. Because that's going to happen, right? There is going to be one of those plays where he just, assuming Kittle or Juszczyk's not there, that Mike whiffs. I mean, whiffs. And honestly, it could happen. One thing Quinn has done, and any good defensive coordinator with their salt, you can line up a guy like that over a guard. It could be Burford. It could be Brendel.
Right.
It could be fucking Banks. Probably not Banks because Trent could just throw his arm over there. It'd probably be the center to the right. But more than likely, they're going to whiff. Remember there was it Donald that whiffed last year? They whiffed on Donald. Remember that?
Yeah. It was Aaron Donald. You don't think they want to move Micah to his backside at all? To Brock's spin side?
Yeah, but Trent just block him. Or you just say, hey, he's a great player too. Maybe you can beat him.
Yeah, I mean, Trent's been.
What would you say over under reps? 11 lines up over 71.
I'd say
what number? 60 snaps.
Yeah, I'm thinking what number would I have to give you for you to take the under? Would you take the under on 3.5?
The highest I'd go is 5.
5. Schwan on the stream says, I see run heavy the first few, then a shot to Danny Gray. Been setting that one up all year.
You know what Danny Gray's Instagram account is?
6 to the house.
Close. Can't guard 5.
Oh, he's number 5. I thought it was 6 to the house.
He is 6, but I wonder if his college number was 5.
I knew
Can't guard 5.
6 to the house was so good.
That was close. Can't guard 5.
Can't guard 5.
I'm sure he would have liked that for Twitter. It must be taken because it's a normal Danny Gray.
Yeah, can't guard 5.
Man, saying this about Danny Gray, I think deep down, he's told people close to him, like, I think within the next year, I will be in the mix right there with Ayuk and Debo on this offense, right?
Well, and that might be extreme. I think the fact that he plays special teams, he's got a shot.
You're right. He did have a good tackle last game.
I think he's got I was like, I think he's got some shit to him when I saw him make that special teams tackle the other day.
I agree.
And John Lynch does like him. What a big game for Brock Purdy, man. Just
who doesn't get any bigger?
He's playing the Dallas Cowboys at home as the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
It's as big as it gets.
I saw somebody Bear, the researcher from College Game Day.
Chubby ball guy, yeah.
He tweeted like every time he went through the whole thing, but it was like they must have done some Iowa State games. He must like him because he was like every time. First they said, Brock, we'll see if he can do this next week. Then they said, we'll see if he can do this next week. Then when are we just going to accept that he's a good quarterback? And Herbie retweeted and was like, exactly. And look, we have talked Brock up a lot. It's incredible. This is it really. I was texting John the other day. I was like, it is pretty mind blowing when you consider where the season was when it started. All the things I was just logging our highest viewed videos in history. And like the last several months have been a high percentage of them. And it's like, the McCaffrey trade, obviously it's like you go back to trade the draft night a few years, but the McCaffrey trade, some of the Brock Purdy stuff. And it's insane. I don't think Brock has played enough that like we stopped checking off all these little markers along the way of his career. And usually you have to play longer than he's had to play to get the opportunity to check all these things off, right? Like quarterback a division clinching win, check. Quarterback a playoff win, check. Quarterback a rivalry home playoff game, check. I guess he did that last week too. Now this Dallas game where, what I'm really interested to see is what kind of game is required of Brock Purdy to win. Is 285 passing yards required of him in order to win this game? I think if you go back, if you use last year as any barometer, and when we went through some of the McCarthy stuff earlier, that to me that was just about like Mike, not so much last year's game versus this year's game. But like if you use last year's game to some degree, and just historically what it has taken for the Niners to win in the postseason, the reason the Cowboys got back in that game is because the Niners actually got a little unhinged in the second half offensively. Like Jimmy threw a bad pick. The Niners, Jimmy missed. I was actually a little surprised. I'd forgotten the play rewatching the game. The Niners have a 3rd and 11, and I think Kyle's just going to sit on the ball, and he doesn't. He lets Jimmy, after Jimmy's pick, he lets Jimmy throw. And you might remember he gets Ayuk wide ass open. Ayuk ends up in like Odell Beckham mode, trying to one-hand a ball along the sideline. That, the debate was, did Ayuk break it too flat? Should Jimmy not have let him down the sideline? But anyway, it's incomplete. My point is, the Niners taking care of the football and hitting open plays, they don't end up in that finish with Dallas that they ended up in last year. So the recipe is to this point,
one major difference of the two quarterbacks is one guy, his down in a 60-minute game was really ugly. Brock's down has not been that bad. And his high has been higher than Jimmy in terms of explosive play. So it's like he's a better quarter. Like they were just upgraded quarterback from that version of Jimmy and this version of Brock. Like Brock's better. Brock's a better player.
Yeah, he has been. so far. He is, but you don't, he missed a couple of these before. Like, you just don't get that many shots to hit the guy wide open and ice the game.
If I told you, though, Jimmy Garoppolo, wide open Ayuk, Brock Purdy, wide open Ayuk, $1,000, who you place your bet on?
I'm putting it on Brock. But Jimmy's hit it too. That's my point. Is like they've won these games.
I'm not acting like Jimmy is some shitty fucking Mike Glennon here. But
will he be there on the sideline for the game, John?
Well, yeah, he's just in the locker room with Trey, who, did you see he posted some of these when Rand Carthon got the job?
Oh, I did.
He did 3 of these.
I saw him in a boot with like a cane walking to the Niners locker room the other day.
Will Trey Lance be the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans next year?
Great question.
Coming up February 27th.
Are we off that week? No, we're back that week. I'm just saying the recipe is simple. The recipe is not have to throw for 300. So I'm just very interested to see.
But also there's a difference of, like, to me, 300 and I forget the exact length of it, 65 yards or 60 yards or 70 yards. Debo they hit a slant and he took it to the house, right? Last week. So yards sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is where it's like, yeah, Brock was awesome, but some of the yards, and this is with any quarterback, no different than I've seen Dak have some picks. Remember when they lost to the Jags? The pick he threw for the pick six at the end of the game went off his fucking wide receivers numbers, right? And landed in number 2's hands, and he took it to the house.
Right.
So it's like not all picks are the same. So it's just like not all 350 yards are the same. Like Peyton Manning's had 300-yard games that are just like, that was surgical. Some guys have had 280-yard games where 2 of them are 2 65-yard plays. I mean, that's 120 right there. And I think Brock and the Niners always benefit from that, right? Their offense is very predicated on get the ball in the hands of a couple guys, Debo mainly, but Kittle. If Kittle has a 90-yard game, I would say on average, any Kittle game over 90 yards, 40% are coming with after the ball's in his hands of those yards, right? Ayuk would be a guy right now that his yards are true. If you throw 100 yards, 8 catches, 100 yards, a lot of those are down the field.
Mm-hmm.
But Debo and Kittle specifically, a lot of those they get a lot after the catch yards. Ayuk can as well. I'm not saying you can't, but so it's just, I think sometimes yards can be kind of, arbitrary based on the individual game. And I think Brock's a little bit last week were at times with, like, to me,
the Sammy Baugh game in 37. Is that what you were about to say?
Well, like last week's a good example, right? He has 2 touchdown throws to running backs that are kind of dump offs. They were both really impressive passes and plays, right?
Yeah.
And the one to Mitchell, I think, was, one of the most impressive plays of the day. But if you just look on a box score, like, what does he throw? A wheel route? A guy walks in the end zone? No, you watch the play, right? So it's just
saying it goes both ways, yeah.
Football really needs to be put in context on an individual basis. No different than the Cowboy game. You watch it, you go, final score 23-17. This was a hell of a game. But when you actually dive into it, you're like, well, Niners were kicking their ass and they kind of imploded at the end. It really, start to finish, that was not a good Cowboy game, right? And remember, after the game, people were devastated. Like, what the fuck was that? Because the Niners were huge underdogs, came in and hit them right in the teeth. Yep. And if it wasn't for a Jimmy pick, but this gets back to everyone's acting like Miami and Buffalo were close, and the score was. Skylar Thompson did not throw 4 touchdowns on the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills outgained them by over 200 yards. The New York Giants outgained the Minnesota Vikings by 100 yards. Both teams outplayed them. But what keeps games close in the playoffs, and most times, but definitely in the playoffs? Turnovers. Josh threw 2 picks, and he had a fumble 6. If you tell me Brock throws 4 touchdowns, but throws 2 picks, I'd be like, it could be a tie game in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Right? If you tell me he has 4 touchdowns, no picks, I'm like, Niners by 18 plus.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's, I guess you make me think the other interesting thing is just Kyle. Like this Kyle, one of the things we've talked about with Brock being the quarterback is how Kyle has kind of come back out of his shell a little bit. It feels like when it comes to the passing game, does he do more than he needs to? Does he try to get cute? I don't know. I don't think so. He generally doesn't try to get, but sometimes they try to get too cute. It happens from time to time with the Niners. And not a lot, not like the Cowboys. It just occasionally it pops up. Like I'd say, honestly, last year was an example against Dallas. They put Trent Williams in motion to run a quarterback sneak that's going to end the game, and the Cowboys are not going to get the ball back. Why is Trent Williams ends up not being set in time? The 49ers snap the ball. It's an illegal shift, and the Cowboys get the ball back.
But they ran Trent in motion the following week to get an enormous first down, remember?
Yeah, well, then they did it again, and it didn't work. Remember that?
Kyle really wanted to show everyone that they could put Trent in motion.
The first time he did it with Trent, it was cool. The second time he did it with Trent, it felt a little gratuitous.
Yeah, it
was too much.
Felt overkill.
Yeah, it was overkill. So
I would say
the juice option play. That wasn't that a broken play? Did we determine that was not?
I don't know. I would say no Trent in motion. Just leave him at left tackle and utilize him by running behind him.
Yeah, you can't. He can only be in one place at once. So just
let him stay set and move human beings.
I think Jimmy, I think Jimmy was almost perfect or perfect on like sneaks. Like Jimmy had not been stopped. Just we're talking about an inch here or a yard. You guys train to be muscly. They don't. Their interior linemen were on the inactive list last week.
Jimmy's a better QB sneaker than Brock. Brock's a little unsure about it.
A little unsure and just smaller.
Yeah.
But the push, that's where the push is key.
That's where the push is key.
A lot of Brock's strength comes from juice.
What about quarterback sneak, shift Trent behind Brock? Little risky. Trent could hurt Brock. So I don't know if I'd want him shoving. Can you imagine if Purdy got hurt? If Purdy got hurt on Trent Williams shoving him from behind, like broke his rib.
Lifting him up like Simba over the pile.
I wonder if we eventually get a quarterback injured that way. On a push behind, like a running back rams into him.
If you go look at Brock's last sneak last week, it was pretty physical.
Yeah, pretty violent.
It's
a violent play to begin with.
Who else got clocked in the head on a sneak last week? Quarterback. I think it was Daniel Jones. Gets just forearm shiver to the face, like ripping his head back. Might have been.
No, Eric Kendricks grabbed his face and ripped
it was
him
Kendricks.
back.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was Kendricks. Yeah. So
it looked like he could have shattered his back. Anyone listening to this, including me and you, our bones are broken, right? Because he stopped and Kendricks bends him back. He's already over the line. I just remember going like, God, I couldn't.
You know, people always say, like, could you pick up a yard in the NFL? If I gave you a big hole, could you pick up a yard? What about this question? If I gave you the ball.
You get the ball at the line where the opening is?
Where the running back is.
Yeah.
What about this one? You get 3 straight carries to ice a football game. You just have to not fumble. Could you not fumble? Because if you go back, again, just watch the Niner Cowboy game from last year, Elijah Mitchell and Romo's going, they got to try and get the ball out. And he is just getting destroyed. Van Der Esch and Parsons, and these guys are just punishing him. Could you not fumble?
I'd say the average just male. What would you say? Between like 30, because you couldn't do like 60-year-olds. Like
you just take your peak physical, whatever you're like 20.
The average 32. Athletic non-Division 1 football player, 26-year-old.
Bet it.
I think all it takes is one whiff by an O-lineman or untouched linebacker, and you are fucked. I think at collision, the ball's flying.
Without even them trying to rip it out, you're saying?
I think, you know how when guys get concussed and they immediately or rip a knee and they just let go of the ball?
Yeah.
I think the average peak male non-Division 1 athlete, when they got hit by Fred, Micah Parsons, right? Hassan Reddick, just full on, that collision, you're just going like this naturally. So I think immediate fumble.
I think you're right.
And I also think the 5 points of pressure, which you'd be YouTubing it, you'd be ready. I think the moment Micah Parsons or whoever did the rip move, that ball flies to the Jared. I think it goes fast.
What are the 5 points? Like,
well, it's the tip, it's the side, it's the arm. I don't know.
5 points of pressure.
I don't think there's been enough, like, I guess sports science could do this.
Brinkus?
I don't know if it'd quite work on like a Big J Athletic article, but like a YouTube deep dive on just talk to a bunch of running backs about, how hard it is. Like, God, they feel like I was really close to letting that thing go. You You know, like when you're carrying something to the dinner table and maybe your hand, you just wash your hands or something and you like almost dropped. You're like, whoa. How often they think like get back to the huddle, like, God damn, that thing almost came out right there.
Maybe Brinkus is coming back. I think the sports science or whatever.
Trent Dilfer? I think Trent Dilfer was involved with Brinkus back in the day.
Oh,
for
was
something. Yeah.
I don't know what Brink has been doing.
I think you get one of those gigs, you know, it's like, see the Bachelor season's coming back. You hit a couple of them, you make some big cash, and then you got a lot of free time on your hands.
Maybe. I don't know. I told you I was at the Brinkus, the Sports Science studio one time years ago when I did that audition for UFC Live. And they got all their shit set up, you know, like all the little stuff they used. And then
They
Brinkus
ever call you back for the UFC Live?
Never call me back for UFC Live. Oh, I hope that audition tape never sees the light of day. It's like,
did you call it with like?
Oh, it wasn't an event. It's a show. It was a daily show. UFC Live. John Anik told somebody that he thought I could do it, only because Anik used to come on. You know John Anik. He's like the main UFC guy now.
I know John Anik. Yeah,
he used to come on. My producer in Fresno, the radio show. We're talking like 2008, 9, 10. Was a big UFC guy, so he'd bring Anik on, and I would for an hour, I would cram for these Anik interviews because the UFC was cool. I wanted to sound cool. I thought it was cool to like know about the UFC. I didn't know shit, but for the hour, I would cram for Anik. And so Anik thought I knew my shit. I did not. So one day I got a call from some producer at ESPN like, hey, John Anik gave us your number. We think he said we should have you audition for UFC Live. It's like, yeah, I'd love to do it. Like, all right, we'll drive on down to Burbank on a Friday. So I got down to Burbank and they give me the script when I show up. And I think I've told you I still have the script somewhere. It is this. And you sit down and they're like, all right, let's read we'll have you read the script for the audition. I have it. It's October 30th, 2011. I just put it in my email. Coming up on MMA Live. Don't be scared, homie. Nick Diaz is back in the UFC for the first time in 5 years, but standing in his way is former champion BJ Penn. Why the Prodigy could be primed to ruin the return. And Matt Mitrione played in the NFL, but is meathead ready for the MMA prime time? Or will he be put back in check by Congo? MMA Live starts now.
Did MMA Live ever get off the ground? That ever happened?
It was a daily show on ESPN. Anik ended up hosting it.
Because they couldn't find anybody.
I couldn't find anybody. I think I could be wrong. And then they run through. There's like I got a whole rundown here, but that was the tease. And I remember sitting there in like a suit, oversized. It's just like a camera, a couple people, and I read this tease. And I remember reading that and going, "There's no way I'm getting this job." Like hearing it come out of my own mouth and thinking, I have no chance.
Yeah.
They know I'm a fraud.
Well, there's a level of you can't fake reading BJ Penn like you're saying, you know, LeBron James or Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Right. There is a level of confidence when you're talking like Verlander versus Judge coming up next that you just like, I know this sport. I know these people. It's like, you think Chuck Liddell? Let me introduce you to John Williamson. You're like, who the fuck? What am I talking about?
Totally. I'm just looking. I don't remember this, but apparently there's a part where now joining us for the first time in a long time, it's our esteemed international correspondent, the Daily Telegraph, Gareth Davies. Gareth, now neither guy seemed thrilled to be facing one another. What's the dynamic between these two?
Well, how much time, if I told you in 2026 when the World Cup comes, I'm going to hire you at ABC or whatever to call some World Cup games. Is there any amount of games you could do leading up to the World Cup where you would feel confident doing the World Cup? Like you would be like, hey, you're going to do the NFL next year. It'd be a big deal, but like you've called football games.
You could tell me to do an NFL game. Like you could call me on Saturday night and say, 700 people are sick, Niners-Cowboys. I would be fine. You're telling me you give me how much? 3 years to get ready for soccer?
It's coming in 26, I think. There's no way, right? There's a level of just understanding the sport.
Yeah, I would need to do, it would be a daily task for 3 years, I think, of preparation.
But here's the thing, and this gets to like Brock Purdy and instincts. You could be prepared as well as you possibly could, right? It would never be the same of your institutional knowledge of just watching basketball, football, and baseball your entire life since you were old enough to turn on the television, right? And it's why, like last night, we went to dinner with Maria's cousin, who is the second ranked. I don't know if he's injured right now. He's like late 20s, tennis player for Greece. And he's like, in the country or in the world, he's like 500. His peak was like 300. And there's just a level, like all I could talk about is like, you ever read the Agassi book? And he did. He speaks like broken English, Greece. He's from Greece. He grew up in Greece, went to Portland State, and then just pro tour. And you're just finding out about this sport, which, listen, I mean, it's tennis, pretty big sport. I know that Rafa, do you see that clip of Rafa? Have you watched the Drive to Survive tennis with Alyssa?
Oh, no. I haven't.
Well, there was a clip.
I did see the clip.
Yeah, it was sweet. And I told him about
Explain the clip. Sorry.
The clip is Drive to Survive. Obviously, they're doing golf, and they did one for tennis. And in the tennis clip, he's playing in the Australian Open final against some random guy, clearly. And Rafa, before the match, starts like going full Ray Lewis, like linebacker, like running up and down, doing some grunts. And the headline of the clip was Rafa won this final before the fucking match even started. And I asked him last night, I'm like, what did like Federer or Djokovic do? He's like, well, Federer just stands there. He doesn't even care. Everyone's wired differently. Like Rafa's the perfect guy for that clip because Federer does not do that before the match. He doesn't necessarily need to, but that's not his style. But my point is, like, I know a decent amount about like 7 guys in the history of tennis, right? Agassi, Sampras, the 5 guys of the last 20 years. That's it. I don't really break point. I've played, but I do not like soccer, tennis. Like I could just feel comfortable talking the main sports, right? I've been watching it my whole life. And that's where football coaches, like they do football, like the average sports fans listening to this, they might not watch all the baseball games anymore, all the basketball games. But if you're our age or older, you have a pretty good knowledge of our main 3 sports. Someone DM'd me the other day, like, why don't people talk about hockey? Like the national people. I think his question was like, what would it take to get Colin Cowherd to talk about hockey? I'm like, or just anyone of his ilk. I'm like, well, on the most basic level, they don't watch it. I don't watch it. He doesn't watch it. Dan Patrick, nobody watches it beside a small percentage of people. So he's not going to watch it. Because he doesn't have to.
People stop seeing it.
Yeah, it's not even on. And honestly, like you could argue certain sports, football is the only sport I would now consider kind of universal. Like basketball is not niche in the sense there's so millions of people watching, but relative to football, like if you're watching every basketball game, you're different than even the majority of casual sports fans. Now, obviously baseball is the same thing. Or football, like you could talk to most people about the San Diego Charger game on Saturday night. And it just gets back to like no different than what he was saying in Greece. Because I was like, when I went to Europe in college in 2006 for like 30 days, it was crazy how big, and in Spain, Rafa was a young star then, like how big tennis is. Like tennis is huge in Europe. But he's like, it's not that big in Greece. Soccer's big. But in Spain, in France, like in England, tennis is huge, right? Like soccer's number 1, but like golf, tennis, and racing, some of the other, like the way football, basketball are. Like you meet a big sports fan in like the UK, they could probably like have a very good feel for obviously soccer, but then like tennis, golf, and F1, right? They would be dialed into F1. Where a lot of people now act like they watch F1. They don't know it like they would like the fucking Mets lineup,
Right.
So, it's why, what's his name? The dude that called hockey forever, the famous, who's the main guy?
Oh yeah. With the great vocabulary.
Yeah. And now doesn't Sean McDonough plays a big role? Like he's done hockey for a long time.
And Wischusen does a lot of it. He's done it for years.
But I would guess wouldn't you guess that they're pretty big hockey? Like they like hockey?
Yeah. They're from the Northeast.
From the Northeast. Like, why is Jim Nantz good at golf? Well, he fucking been playing his whole life. It wasn't just handed to him like you want to get in on golf. He's like a college golfer. It comes naturally to him.
Yep.
All I'm saying is you're at a disadvantage. What are you still friends with what's his name? The UFC guy?
I haven't talked to him in a while. I haven't talked to him in several years, but I over the years I would just send him a text here or there. So why you want me to pass a message along?
No, just pretty genius. Do you think he just liked it, or just kind of randomly?
I think he's a big MMA guy. Has been at it for years. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but like probably liked fighting when he was young.
Oh yeah, I bet he'd like. Oh yeah, I used to watch all the Hoist Gracie tapes.
Exactly. Like Kellerman was big into boxing.
Right.
Like boxing was a passion for his. Like people in this country love basketball or baseball. Like loves the fight. Chris Mannix. Like you ever just listen to Chris Mannix randomly? Like if you're just watching TV and he's doing a hit, like a boxing hit, the dude knows like
Mad Dog talking tennis.
Mad Dog talking tennis. Exactly. They fucking love it. You gotta keep up with it. Those sports are just the way we could talk about like, where do you think CJ Stroud's going in the draft? They're talking about like the next middle heavyweight in fighting,
Oh. All right. What else? Oh, I saw Stetson Bennett's. I asked you. You said you saw it as well. Stetson Bennett's. I was late to this party, I guess, but his post parade speech, very weird. Very weird. No, he's no Brock Purdy. I think Brock would have had a better speech than Stetson.
Totally agree.
No one's told me yet what his degree is in. What he graduated with.
Can we give them some love?
Go ahead.
I saw Mike Brown. Follow
Sacramento Kings.
Follow the Sacramento Kings on Instagram.
It's a comment.
And Mike Brown came up on my timeline today.
Davis Highgate, Utah baseball assistant coach.
His long lost cousin Mike Brown, who's now the head coach of the Kings head coach.
I thought you were talking about our Mike.
No, yeah, Mike Brown, the head coach of the Kings, and they beat the Lakers last night, and like a "Let's Go Kings" chant broken out, and he kind of laughed. He's like, we've gotten some of these this year. Obviously, having the best season in decade and a half. He's like, sometimes when they happen a little early in the game, I get nervous. We haven't been doing this long enough to just wait. This isn't the Kevin Durant Warriors, guys. Let's keep winning these games. But they are. I haven't really watched them play, so I'd be lying. But they are 25 and 18, and in third currently. They're having a remarkable. Like it's going to take a pretty big implosion. Like they're going to the playoffs, guy. And was it last year? The Seattle Mariners they were the longest.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Raiders a couple years ago broke their streak. The Kings are currently sit atop. The Phillies, they were over a decade. The Kings, I think 15 or 16 years.
Don't want to be in the playing game.
They're third in the West, guy.
I know. I'm sure they'll keep rolling. Every time I talk to my dad, he wants to just light the beam. My dad's been telling me for years, this is the year. And this year he's saying, I told you so.
I saw Biederman, who Sacramento Bee, goes to a bunch of Kings games. He had a post on Instagram, just a story. Because I think sometimes stuff like the beam happens in sports in general with the team. People talk shit about it. I actually think he's 100% right. He's like, the beam's cool. It doesn't cost any money for anything. It's organic. They just thought of it. The fans can have a good time with it. And again, they charge nobody. A lot of times these type things, it's like, it becomes cool, but you use it to monetize. It's just an organic, easy thing to do. You hit the button and the beam goes. I think it's a cheesy thing that I find cool.
I think one of the coolest things about when a team is good in a town is when you can tell that a team is good because you see people wearing the logo. You see flags on cars. You see people might hang a flag outside. Like I remember living in the city when the Giants were good. People always San Francisco Giants flags out of windows and that kind of thing. That is so awesome. Like that is not to be cheesy about it, but like the sense of community that sports can help create. Like you can feel it when that happens. And to me, the beam is like, it's the flag that everybody sees. I'm with you. I didn't know there was like a debate about it, but I think it's really cool. I'm pro beam. I'm pro beam because it's just one big fly the W flag when the Cubs win. It's just cool.
I think a lot of people, we didn't grow up in Sacramento. There's a little causeway that separated us, but like the Sacramento people, when I went to Hunter Bishop's charity, it was like a golf tournament. It was a sports themed. So most people were wearing, a lot of people wore basketball jerseys, a lot of athletes. So they got good looking arms. So they wore basketball jerseys. Logan Webb had on a Kings jersey. Most people that you meet from Sacramento that like sports, that are guys and girls, like the Sacramento Kings. They have a very loyal fan base for that area, right? Yeah, you don't meet many people from Sacramento that don't like the Kings.
And you're still, boy, you don't miss a Kings game.
Well, I'm a convenient NBA fan. I've been bouncing around my whole life. I ain't stopping now.
I've got my YouTube TV set to just record any Kings games that come on, and I don't think it's caught any yet.
We had a national brand.
They don't get. I saw somebody tweet like the Clippers have 13 games coming up. They don't care about TV games. Like just take them off of national TV. They don't care. Put the Kings on. Kings are fun. I did watch a clip of De'Aaron Fox do an interview the other day. It was entertaining.
It feels like they got a good positive vibe going around the squad.
Yeah.
One thing with Mike Brown, you met him. He feels just like a positive guy. Like he's not a negative. A lot of positive energy
Very
coming
positive,
from Mike Brown.
Absolutely.
And they've had, Yeager, probably their best coach post Adelman. I would say Yeager leans negative.
Very good coach, leans negative. Yeah. Mike Malone might have been their best coach.
True.
And also leans extremely negative.
Where would you lean? What's Kyle positive, negative? Would you kind of put him in the middle or
Shanahan?
Yeah.
I think if we really went through like all 32 coaches, I bet he'd lean neutral, not negative. Because every coach, who would you say is a positive? Andy Reid, positive.
Yeah.
Who are the positive, quote unquote?
I'd say Pete's a pretty upbeat guy.
Pete Carroll, positive. Yep.
I'd say Sirianni feels like he's a pretty positive, upbeat guy.
I would agree.
I would. McVay could probably be a little darker behind the screen than I wonder if people realize.
I agree with that, but he also feels like his positive upside is higher than Kyle's, like running down the field, high-fiving people.
Yeah, I'd say like.
I think truly, like I don't think he's like more positive than Kyle. Probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like Bowles negative. Are we just looking for positive guys?
We're just trying to find how many guys are more positive than Kyle. Because my guess is Kyle is actually not like the bottom. I bet McCarthy probably feels more positive, I'd say.
Dennis Allen, negative. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of negative coaches. You're right.
Mike McDaniel, I'd say feels more positive.
Mike McDaniel is. Salas probably is too. I'd say he's more positive.
Staley.
This is not a good thing. Always,
no,
right?
I know. We're just Staley.
People say he doesn't listen to many people. I don't know.
Zach Taylor, LaFleur.
I'd say LaFleur is more negative than Kyle.
Kyle, when mad, looks like a caged animal.
Did you see the thing where he went on about when Debo got his leg ripped? Did you see KNBR tweeted it? Joe Staley was on with Papa. And Joe said he looked at the room of people at his house when that thing happened and the melee happened and he saw Kyle on the field. Kyle bumps one of their linebackers. He said, get ready. I'd bet the house they're going to run it every single time until they punch in the end zone. Just run. Kyle kind of went like this.
I got to go back and watch that. How about Debo saying he blacked out? Debo said he blacked out when it happened.
Because he didn't want to hop up fast and fight him.
He was so angry, he blacked out. That's a good piece of insight there from Staley.
Yeah, Kyle's pissed.
And Kyle, like, shows his anger by running the football. That's what I love. Anything else for you? Justin Herbert's getting wasted. Sean Payton claims to want $25 million a year to coach.
If Mel Tucker's worth 9, I mean, he's not worth 25.
Mel Tucker so badly screwed up the coaching market.
I agree.
I mean, because now you're like Michigan, you can't have Harbaugh making 9, right? If you're Jim, you can't be making 9. You got to be making and you can't be making 11 either, right? If Mel's worth 9, I'm not worth 11. I'm worth 18.
Tough spot,
Tough spot, yeah. I think I think the Big Ten ADs have to be praying that Michigan State sucks and that they just fire them.
I think it's pretty expensive to fire him, though, right?
It's expensive to fire all these guys.
That's why you don't give guys 10-year deals.
It's also expensive to lose. Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of Sean Payton. He's like, just give me 4 years, $100 million. Well, what's the big deal? I don't understand.
How much does Dion make? Do you ever see his contract?
I have not seen. No.
Kind of crazy how that. I mean, it doesn't feel like he's making like 80 a year or anything.
No, so Dion is making 4.5. Base pay 500 with 400 with 4 million in supplemental. I love the base pay. So Dion's making 4.5.
I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like a lot of college coach. I remember when I was at Fresno State, Pat Hill's base pay was like $250,000, and it was all the other stuff to get him close to $2 million.
TV appearances, Nike, radio. It's like, wait, he makes $750 for his coach's show? 100,000?
Crazy. You get like 7 paychecks when that happens.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
hey, honey, get out the calculator. Make sure they didn't lowball us.
I saw there's an ad for some company where it's like it's the ad, you may see it. It's like a software that your company uses where your employees are the ones that like make sure they're getting the right amount of healthcare, withdrawal, local state tax. Your employees do it. And the ad is like, when your employees do it, then there's going to be fewer mistakes because your employees looking over each individual, their own paycheck, they're going to have eagle eyes. So you're never going to have a situation where somebody had a paycheck missed, then you got to make it up to them. And I thought, wait a second, if I'm the employee, I look over my paycheck like a hawk anyway. What are you talking about? Now I got to do the work. Also, that sounds like bullshit. Keep an eye out for that ad.
Totally agree.
It's BS. All right. On that note, we'll see.
Godspeed, everybody. Have a weekend.
It's going to be so bad.
I got to pee bad too. Have a weekend.